What are red flags of a selfish person? Story 1. When anything that happens to them is the worst thing in the world and whatever happens to you is not that bad and a waste of time talking about or dealing with. I know your mom died a month ago, but my best friend of 3 years died too, so I don't see why you are so sad all of the time. I think narcissism and selfishness go hand in hand, so there you go. Friend of mine was talking to a mutual ex-friend about how she was feeling because it was coming up to the anniversary of her sister's murder. The ex-friend responded that she was also feeling and needed support because her boyfriend, who had been visiting for the weekend, had gone home. We both cut her off after that. Story 2. Don't think they're wrong in the slightest bit. They can't shoulder any bit of responsibility. My former neighbors are bad alcoholics. Every night is a Friday night. Weekends are like New Year's. The police were constantly getting called to their house. Their kids not only destroyed their property but other people's as well. Their junk was always strewn all over multiple yards. Their landlord evicted them. My neighbor was pissed and fought hard in court to stay because they paid their rent via assistance. It was everyone else's fault but theirs. It was the landlord's fault for being biased against them. The neighbors are at fault for complaining about their kids. Their parents are at fault for not helping more. Everyone bears the blame but them. All I can say is it has been so peaceful since they've. Story 3. Also shopping trolleys. I forget who said it first, but it's been said that that's the true test of if you're selfish or not. There's no penalty for not taking your trolley to the trolley point. There's likely not even going to be anybody who confronts you about it. All leaving your trolley in the middle of the car park does is inconvenience someone else. Do you take it back anyway? I have a big van that is a nightmare to park. Sometimes I have to circle a parking lot for a while waiting for a space that I can actually fit it into to open up. One time I was getting ready to back into an open space and patiently waiting for the lady who was currently standing blocking my approach to finish unloading her cart into her trunk and get out of the way. To my astonishment, when she finished unloading the cart, she pushed the cart into the middle of the empty parking space I was trying to back into and then got in her car to leave. I was already backing up to the spot when she did this, so I quickly put it in park, hopped out, grabbed the cart, and moved it behind her car so it was blocking her in, and then hopped back in the van and finished parking. She got out of her car and gave me the stink eye, and then pushed the cart into the middle of the other empty parking space on the other side of her car and left. Story 4. They respond how worse their situation is when you're sharing your problems with them. No try for help or listening, just trying to draw attention on their side. I once had a friend who would just complain all the time about everything, never really doing anything to fix the problem, and if she did, she'd still complain about it. Lately, I have just been letting her talk, with dry responses such as, "Oh wow, tough luck. Yeah, you told me all of that via text," and I would talk only if she would ask me a question. Well, the hangout got silent super fast, and it seems she is no longer sharing the details of her life with me. One day I told her that I want to be her friend, but our conversations were always so negative, and couldn't we talk about more positive things? The whole dynamic of the friendship changed and she just straight up stopped talking to me, saying, "I don't know what to talk about with you anymore." That admission tied with her inaction blew me away. We drifted apart and are no longer friends. Story 5. They gladly take any favors you do for them, but when asked if they could reciprocate once, they get defensive and or aggressive and act like you're the selfish one for daring to expect something in return. It doesn't make you a bad person to expect reciprocation in a relationship with someone else, romantic or platonic. Relationships are give and take, and that makes them healthy. It's not right to expect kindness if you give kindness. If you're the only one giving, you're being taken advantage of. As some people have pointed out, doing something kind with the expectation to gain something from it can be manipulative. I'm not talking about narcissism and manipulation. I'm talking about the natural give and take in a relationship. It is not manipulative to expect certain things out of a relationship, depending on what kind of relationship it is. The whole reason we make relationships is because they give us something, whether that be support, love, safety, or other advantages. It isn't a bad thing. It's a human thing. Typically, with give and take, if you notice a pattern of one person consistently taking without giving, the one taking is the problem, not the one giving. The kind of people who use this as a manipulation tactic aren't the ones who stick around in a relationship for years, doing favors and kind things without being asked to. They're more likely to do one favor and demand twice as much in return. Why do I know this? I've had these people in my life, which is what gave me the realization I commented above. Story 6. Currently going through this with my roommate. She always asks for my help, expects me to walk her dog every day, constantly asks me to pay rent in advance even if I'm not getting any income for 3 weeks. Yes, she asked me to pay a second rent just a week after the last. She never thanks me for walking the dog. Any advance payment? No thanks either. She will just keep asking as if I am her bank account, then get angry when I am unable to pay. Last week, she asked me to cook an extra amount of food because we had guests and then threw a fit because I used beans. It's not that she or anyone else can't eat beans, it was just her dislike of the day. She had eaten those same beans in other dishes and liked it. Because I had put so much effort into cooking more food than normal and her behavior was worse than usual, I have completely stopped helping her or even speaking with her. Story 7. Every bad thing you do to them is drama-worthy. Or the classic is when you do something that pisses them off, you stop. But when they do something similar, never 100% the same, but they don't understand the nuance. They can't understand why that would ever upset you, and it shouldn't upset you. It's not that big of a deal. I'm trauma dumping here, lol. Anyways, people don't take responsibility for their actions. Better yet, any moderately bad thing that happens to her in general is a life-altering trauma and absolute crisis. Meanwhile, I've had some absolutely horrible things happen to me in my life that I've been expected to move on from almost immediately. When I was a kid, I recall literally being ordered to forgive and not be angry. Usually, they would just pretend nothing happened. I have never once received any apology or acknowledgement that they have done anything wrong. Ever? Naturally, it was fine for them to be angry with me forever over literally any small thing, and I should immediately beg for forgiveness and change whatever it was, even if it was literally them not liking my voice or face or breathing too loudly. I hate my parents. If they go home, I'll let them die alone. My sibling, the favored one, can visit. Story 8. When every single bad thing that happens to another person gets spun around into their personal problem. My mom's side of the family can be like this. It's mostly just garden variety emotional immaturity. My mother and her siblings were raised by loving but complicated parents, loads of generational and childhood trauma that never was tended to or therapeutically processed, thus calcifying into personality disorder territory. My mom, aunts, and uncles aren't as bad, but they definitely struggle with emotional immaturity and borderline narcissism when under duress. Basically, their inability or unwillingness to regulate their own emotions or distress makes them incapable of genuinely empathizing and supporting others. There's just no room for anyone else's needs other than their own. In fact, they view other people's needs and emotions as a threat, like a zero-sum game mentality where attention on someone else means less for them somehow. Like a toddler when you bring a new baby home. And since they can't self-soothe, they project and make those bad, shameful feelings everyone else's problem. Zero accountability there. It's like something happened to arrest their emotional development when they were kids. It's almost like having an emotional toddler inside an adult's body. It's wild watching them regress in real time, and to know I'm more mature than my parents will ever be. My relatives used to mask or compensate better, but it's getting worse as they age. Story 9. I always worry when I come off like this. I have ADHD, so once I get going on a topic or train of thought, it's difficult for me to fully process the other person's response or switch gears to a different subject. I hope people around me realize I am interested in their thoughts and what's going on in their lives. I'm just socially awkward and overly excitable. ADHD tip: make it a point of following along by asking about their topic. It only comes across as making it about yourself if you don't return the floor to someone. Most people recognize you trying to relate instead of being self-centered if you steer it back towards them. If you go on a tangent, don't be afraid to admit it. If you forget what got you on the subject, just tell them you forgot where you were going with it and ask them to continue. People will notice you diverted even if you don't acknowledge it. Inconsiderate people without ADHD interrupt and change the subject pretty often. They just do it bluntly and without concern, while ADHD is a lot of meandering between ideas. It's at least usually obvious you started by listening and relating. But like all active coping mechanisms, you have to put in effort. Can't just go, "But that's hard." Or, "I have ADHD. I literally cannot do that." You have to make a decision because it's something you care about. And just do your best. Otherwise, it doesn't matter that it's unintentional on your part. It is selfish and self-centered. Story 10. They're surprised and disgruntled when you accept what they've offered. Example, I used to be friends with someone who loved to offer stuff. "I have some cute maternity clothes that would fit you. I can lend them to you if you want. I can help you rearrange your classroom. I'll come in early tomorrow. I made such a great apple pie. I can bring you a piece." These aren't things that anyone solicited. She offered them up. Yet she 100% expects that everyone will politely decline her offers. "I'm a yes person. Anything you offer to me, I will happily accept." The look on her face when I would respond, "That would be great, thanks," was always priceless. She never followed through with any of it, but she never stopped offering stuff, and I never stopped accepting. It was kind of hilarious. Story 11. Cliché answer, but I have found the return the shopping cart test to be pretty accurate. It is such a small thing, but it does tell you if a person thinks small things like that matter. This is my favorite armchair measure of a good person. There is absolutely no benefit to you as the trolley returner, but there is loss to others if you don't. There's also no immediate human association like with how you treat a server or retail employee. Just raw, "Are you thinking about the other guy? I work in a large supermarket and the amount of dumped items we deal with daily is, well, a lot." The thing that really makes me angry is when customers leave temperature-controlled items in random places. Not putting it back where you found it is not really a big deal. It's just annoying. It's when customers leave steaks behind tinned vegetables or swap their chilled pizza for a frozen one. If not found quickly, it just goes straight to waste. Story 12. They're rude to waitstaff or just staff and employees in general, or if their situational awareness is severely lacking and they don't seem to have a problem with it. I bartend part-time. Always funny when some very young couple, or two people on a date, come up to order and one of them is clearly less than impressed by the other's manners. The other day two people came up, ordered, and the guy didn't even say thanks and just barked his last name out for the tab. She pinched her face, looked me dead ass in the eyes and thanked me. She left immediately after finishing that beer. Lol. Happens very often. Story 13. For me, it's people who listen to loud TikTok in public, especially in relatively silent places. There is a guy that hangs out in my favorite bar. Doesn't talk much and stays to himself, but he sits for hours watching videos on his phone with the volume on. It's the most obnoxious thing ever. Bartenders finally told him to turn the volume off or stop watching. He was 100% oblivious to the fact that no one else in the place wanted to hear that. Story 14. My ex was insanely selfish. Her dad gave her a $20,000 a month allowance. Moore paid for her mortgage on a penthouse in New York City while she went to Yale. He paid her car and insurance. She had zero need for cash. All bills are paid. He also gave her a credit card with, I'm assuming, no limit, because we bought a car on a whim once. But I saw her steal $3 from a friend who passed out. She'd steal panties from Walmart. She had a pile of cash in her bedroom. We once needed to pay for a delivery. I don't know if it was bagels or pizza, but she refused to touch the pile of cash. I had to walk to my car to get cash. And when I tipped her $10 for waiting, my ex went ballistic, calling me a moron and cause why would you give a random porky $10 for $5 worth of food? We went to a celeb wedding. She found a way to take 4 gift baskets as opposed to the 2 we were supposed to get. Every guest got one. She also stole a $500 gift card to Victoria's Secret from the wedding. That's $20,000 a month in cash transfers only. I think she was spending closer to $50,000 a month if you include all bills, excluding the cost of schooling. But that being said, we'd go to Michelin star restaurants daily. Every week she'd buy a new outfit made for her. She bought upwards of 75 Birkin bags in a span of 2 to 3 years. She bought new heels every 3-5 days. We'd get hotel rooms every time we'd go out. She gave me $550 a week to make the floral arrangements for her house. It's something I did professionally, so I'm not just a chump here. If you can think $5K a week, I do ziz. She did triple whatever it is. We were together with 6-week break for 5 years and a half. We broke up 'cause I realized she didn't respect me as a person. She'd tell me to walk in back with the help at red carpet events 'cause I'm not red carpet hot. We stayed together because her dad loved me. I was the son he never had. I once overheard him tell her that he's a member of the fam now. Don't fuck it up, lol. But the last straw, she destroyed a dress I made her. It took me 20 hours and a ton of effort. She had it completely recut, and she told a celeb fashion designer I made it. That hurt my business. So, I was done. She married a mechanic on a pig farm in Iowa. So, I lucked out. She's wicked greedy. Story 15. One of my workmates had her drink taken from the fridge by someone else. When she put up a sign on the fridge to remind people not to take things, another guy asked her why she was doing it. She explained her drink was taken, and without skipping a beat, he said, "Oh yeah, that's because someone took mine." So not only willingly admitting to doing it, but his justification was that someone did it to him. So yeah, I'd say that. This is what people call paying your dues. Other people treated me poorly, so I need to perpetuate that to somehow justify it being done to me. If you don't have the same hardship, then somehow it's not fair. It is embedded into so many aspects of society and has got to be some form of evil.